Live from the apocalypse, the saddest place I can imagine is inside of a subway. This is State of the Game. I don't have sponsors, so I'm doing anti-commercials. Where I roast people.
Subway restaurant, yeah.
Yeah, Subway. Don't eat there. So I am Dano, and yeah, I went to my wife's work party yesterday, and I was not embarrassed. She thought I'd be embarrassing, and I wasn't, so I went anyway. Also, the thing you need to know is my son met Iceberg Theory today.
Whoa!
And lost a tooth in his rocking chair. So that was interesting. Shout out to Iceberg Theory and the Tooth Fairy for doing great work. Yeah. So
it was a heck of a weekend, man.
Yeah. Iceberg Theory is awesome. He's such a nice guy. My son came away being like, I like Iceberg. Like, you just a nice dude.
Does he have a treacherous rocking chair?
No. My son had a loose tooth for like a while, and it just happened.
Oh, okay.
He was holding his face, going to the bathroom. Yeah, events happen all over you, around you when you're a parent. It's awesome. Also, Kay, look. So my co-host joins me every week. The jelly to the jam. We're here. We're talking about Kay Diggy. My son had a game this weekend, and there's nothing. It was weird because I was watching the parents of the kid he guarded console him. You know what I mean? You'll do better next week. And I was like, wow, Junior's into it. So I appreciate
You're like T. Moran. What's Ja Morant's dad? You're like Ja Morant's dad.
I don't know about that. I'm chilling on the sideline. But it's a heck of a watch. It's fun to watch it. Zilla's kid was playing, and my kid were playing at the same time. We were texting each other stats. So that was cool. But yeah, it's great. It's been fun. And shout out to, we have an incredible guest here at that party, that drunken party, full of people my wife works with. I asked a question, random question to everybody. How tall are you when your height becomes like a celebrity thing? When people look at you like you're important because you're taller than most people. They said 6 was the cutoff. And I immediately thought of Defcee because Defcee is tall, and it is what anyone talks about when pictures of Defcee come out. With Defcee standing next to normal sized people. It's what they talk about. So I definitely thought about Defcee. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Hey, thank you, man. I don't know. I think I kind of resent the idea of being abnormally heighted, but I think I could live with it. You know what I mean? I think I can live with 6'6" being a celebrity height. Most celebrities are not very tall, though. I will say that.
Right. No, it's that, like, you're so tall, people look at you like you're a celebrity.
Yeah.
They're like, ooh, that's an important thing. That's tall, and so that becomes a deal at a certain height. So but yeah, I'm so happy to have you. You're one of my favorite interviews in rap right now.
Thank you, man.
It's been great at talking about the craft and your process and releasing great music. And I love hearing people argue about you. I love hearing people discover you and be like, this Defcee. I don't know, I'm falling into it, or people banding it about. It's really incredible to hear.
More.
It's great to have you in those conversations.
Word. Thank you, man. Thank you. It's been I've been very fortunate that people like yourself and Kay and Dash have been tuning into my music, because I think you guys also have very are seen as resources for you know, really interesting hip hop music that might be under people's radars. So I appreciate you guys, all three of you, really in your own ways, championing what it is I do, because, you know, like I was telling somebody yesterday at the in-store, I was saying, like, you know, people like me and Mother Nature, and I'm sure there's a very long list of rappers I could also name, like, who defy categorization, oftentimes fly under the radar because people don't know how to pigeonhole you. And so, but like, I always know that people like the three of you who know what they're talking about when it comes to hip hop have been putting on for me. And so that makes it easier to, like, you know, to feel like that love kind of means a little bit more. So I appreciate all three of you guys, and it's good to be here.
That's awesome. And we have the pillar holding Hip Hop DX afloat, Dash Lewis. Thank you very much.
Wow. Wow. Yo, Dash, man.
I'm a little speechless right now. Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to talk with all of y'all. Really excited to do it again.
Yep. Dash Lewis, an intelligent, analytical gentleman that speaks in quiet poetry. I'm glad to have you. And we're talking about Flow. This is the Flow Fantasy Draft. And I was thinking about Flow in general, right? Forgive me, I'm wearing my son's glove for no reason. But I was thinking about Flow in the general sense. Flow is one of the things that, to me, makes hip hop so different. In the sense that there's so many rappers that I have disliked passionately, and they hit a point where their flow connects to what they're saying, to how they're delivering it in a way that is undeniable. And my opinion doesn't matter, and I know they're really good, right? Like, it's kind of undeniable. There's an undeniability to the flow, where there's people that once you hear them, that's it, you know? And that's kind of, that's an interesting thing to me, that there is that kind of, it's almost mathematical, right? Like, so can you think of anybody, Dash, can you think of anybody who had that kind of thing where everybody knew this was special right off the bat?
I mean, the one that I remember, or one that might be wrong, but I think meets the criteria, is Freddie Gibbs.
Ooh, yeah.
It's the first time I heard Freddie Gibbs. I mean, I only needed to hear one song back in like 2009.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I am a fan, and I've been a fan. He hasn't done anything that I've hated. He hasn't done anything that I've really disliked, honestly. He's never, like, he's gone in all these different lanes, and he's made all this different kind of music, but his flow is pretty unbreakable. And yeah, I got floored the first time I heard him.
Yeah. He just sounded like a race car that could shift into lots of speeds, you know? You're just like, oh man, there's so many different places for this flow to go. Yeah, that's a great one. Defcee, do you have any that's to come out in your mind, or?
In terms of, you know, people whose deliveries I recognize for how good they were, like the minute I heard them.
Not just you recognized it, but you felt like a wave of everybody recognized
it. Probably Lupe. I think in Chicago, at least. I think Lupe, like, was somebody who, every time people heard him rhyme, it was like immediately, like, you know, almost what I imagine New Yorkers felt when they heard Nas for the first time, where it's like, okay, this person is now the one from the city. This is the person who's young and hungry and out rapping everybody and doesn't sound like anybody else out. I think definitely was somebody who fit that profile for sure.
And his live at the barbecue would be Touch the Sky, right? Or at the
man, I think, yeah, probably.
Yeah. That and Kick Push. I know Kick Push was
Yeah.
Uh,
I don't know. Yeah,
big.
that's interesting. That's a great pick. Yeah. So I mean, that's what. Yeah, flow is just something that is immediate, that is kind of in your face, but it's also technical. You know, so it is that kind of combination of interesting things, and that's why the flow draft was interesting to me because, as I said in the breakdown, like the flow draft is not to crown the perfect team of flow. To me, it is about uh, telling us what you value in flow, right? What aspects, what attributes you value and that you want close to you. So that's where that pick comes from, and we talk about the people that weren't picked first. Talk about some interesting exceptions. We get do. So yeah, I got the doc up here. Talk about I'm not going to talk about Mike Schaub anymore because I think I'm in the middle of writing about Mike Schaub. I'm going to do a full Mike Schaub thing because I've been listening to a lot of Schaub, so I'm very into it. Yeah. So let's talk about. What should we talk about first? Oh, Prem Rock. I want to talk about Prem Rock for a second. Because there was one of the 20 discords that I'm in, there was like somebody talking about Prem Rock, and they said he sounds like someone who's in everybody's DMs, that he has like a pervy flow. I thought that was very funny. And I was immediately struck like, oh, I wish I could sound sexual like that. I never sound sexual, even when I am. So I, for having that attribute, but that was a very funny thing to hear. People discovering his flow, and he's so good right now. Prem is so good right now.
Yeah. And I think one of the things I really rock with about his flow too is how like jazzy it is in the true sense of that word. Not just like smooth, not laid back, but like really like his flow, his cadence is kind of like a drum solo in a jazz track. You know what I mean? Like but without sounding corny, without sounding like it's trying too hard. That's what I really rock with about Prem's work, as in terms of his flow and his delivery.
It is, very jazzy, very smooth, and but not hoity-toity. There's still like an immediate kind of athletic efficiency to Prem. Like I've seen him live, and he was just in command every second, and like he's been doing this forever, and he's doing it very well, and there was no gasping. There's no, he's just technically, perfect with it. So I love that.
I think he's really deceptive too. I think he's got this kind of on first listen he sounds laid back or sort of like maybe even aloof. And then the more you listen to him, the more you understand like how he's playing with rhythm, and he's kind of a master of it. I think it's just this sort of like understanding pockets and knowing when to push them and when to sort of retreat a little bit. He's got a really interesting technical mind that is not evident until you spend some time with him. But once you do, it's just super rewarding.
That's awesome.
Yeah, agreed.
100%.
Well, and to your point, Dash, like Prem is someone who knows he sounds cool and will use that to trick you into saying something silly or embarrassing and say it in a cool way that you won't even know it, right? That you'll have to like listen a few times to be like, you just what? Is that a reference to the 1986 finals? Like, what happened? So he's, he knows how his flow can trick you into comfort, and he knows how to shake you out of that comfort, which I really enjoy about his work. Yeah. So, Defcee, anyone that you didn't pick on your team that you wish you had been able to?
I mean, I think there are some pretty egregious snubs here, but I was trying to put together the five, like a starting five that would be able to cover all the bases. I was trying to draft like an actual GM would.
Right.
So I felt that this was, but like people like Kane and G-Rap and Rakim and, you know what I mean? And like there are just a lot of, obviously, Biggie and Pac. I think that there are a lot of people on this list that really laid the foundation for how a lot of people rap now. People like Slim Thug, who, you know, are excellent when it comes to picking pockets, Snoop, you know. And then I think people like Sean P are very underrated in terms of their ability because people are so focused on what they're saying as they're rapping. And I think it's the same with Jay-Z too. You could probably say the same with Jay-Z.
Yeah, I don't.
So yeah.
To your point, I think Sean P. I don't think was somebody who was ever fully understood during his lifetime. I went to watch Sean Price live, and he was like opening for Brother Ali, and he was on this loaded ticket, and there was audience full of white kids. This is New England, and they're like, "This is hardcore," and I was like, "Guys, you're missing. This guy's hilarious. Like, this isn't just a hardcore dude. This is a funny dude. This is a heartfelt person. Like, there's so many dimensions that you're missing from what he's doing." I just felt that in the room, and I felt that in the way he was covered. Really, yeah. Yep. So good times. So like, yeah, we should we? Yeah. Anybody, Dash, that you didn't get to put in your five, but they would be your six?
Yeah, I picked my five. Like I in the email chain, I had some clear issues understanding what we were doing.
Right.
I picked my five just because I was trying to I don't know, find. I mean, they're definitely some of my favorites, but some of the weirder ones, I guess.
Oh,
Weren't maybe so obvious or so, like, I don't know. They're like, I think everybody on this list is really important, but the five that I chose, I think, are very niche, and I guess that's what I was looking for. But I think like I like the DMX is on the list, and that is one that I probably would have put on my team because his flow was like this very strange staccato kind of like syncopation that was really simple and he was able to like just kind of leapfrog over rhythms in this very like direct way that I think no one really gave him that much credit for how like nimble he was. Great writer, but he was able to like, he jumped around a lot in this really like kind of forceful way that you don't really hear that much.
Yeah, seemed like he was part of the school of MC we're not going to see anymore with like, DMX, Jay-Z, LL Cool J. These are people that started like battling, right? And had been battling for years, and then like got a contract, and by the time they got the contract, their breath control was crazy. They already had like flow, multitudes.
Yes, they already had their 10,000 hours of practice.
Yeah. So
I think one thing about DMX is how he was able to build tension with his flow. Like he could sort of speed up the ends of bars and and raise his inflection in a way that sounded like a motorcycle revving up. And he could just do these kinds of like these textural things that I don't think anyone really like. I mean, sure, certainly he was appreciated for it, but I don't think it was never really the focus of like any criticism or any like praise about him really.
Going on.
He knew, my bad. I hit the start video instead of the mute. I think DMX, I think rappers really don't think about how syllables fall on the notes of the beat, right? Like, and that kind of will change your understanding of flow and cadence and delivery. And DMX was somebody who was kind of pitch perfect when it came to his rap style. Like every syllable, you know, even if the writing maybe wasn't as intentional, the delivery always was. And it always sounded like him 100%. He was so genuine in everything that he was saying. It really felt like that was his space to be able to articulate maybe some of the things that he was wrestling with in ways that he couldn't in a lot of other avenues of his life. And I think when you have that additional urgency, it means that the music can just kind of pour out of you. And that's what made DMX's flow so special, you know? And one of the things that made him such a special artist too, and the kinds of things that we don't really think about when it comes to flow or delivery, but like the emotionality of it, or I don't know if emotionality is a word, but you know, you know, like the amount of the weight of everything he was saying. So
yeah, that's, I mean, great point. And for me, I think, okay, I wish I had room on my team for Styles P. Like, I probably wouldn't, even if I had another spot, right? I would have to do Scarface, or I'd have to, you know. But Styles P has so much blunt force in his flow. You know, that the impact of his songs was just on a different level, you know? And a great Styles P song felt like it had the power to mow through the wall, you know? I loved his force. Yeah,
and Styles is yet again somebody else who is super sincere in his delivery, 100% genuine at all times. Like he doesn't, and somebody who like wrote like Jay and Wayne, where he just wrote in his head because he thought his mind, he would overthink it if he wrote it down with pen and pad. So Styles is somebody else who's, you know, gonna rhyme from an emotional space. And I think like the song Gangster and a Gentleman, where he's talking about wanting to buy a pair of Jordans, and he says, my mom said wait till Christmas, but I needed them sooner. If you heard that I was broke, dog, it wasn't a rumor, you know, something like that. The weight of what he's saying and like how important it is, like definitely super heavy.
And yeah, to your point, Defcee, anybody who was like trying to think about that sincerity and authenticity, go ahead and look up the recent Math Hoffa interview with Styles P, where Styles P like gets out of his chair and is like staring into everybody's eyes and really sincerely going over his emotional state during different points of his career. Like that blunt force that I described was capturing his real energy, you know. That's it. If you can kind of capture 100% of who you are in your delivery, you're in a much better place. And I think he was really able to do that. It wasn't a fabrication. It wasn't something that was a persona. He was right there in your face. So I always like that respect. Yeah, my favorite D Block Locks member. Yeah, so good times. Yeah, Kay, have you made your official picks, or should we go over your team? Or what's
I'll go based off what y'all do.
Well, we already have our teams picked. We can announce them, I guess.
Yeah.
I can go first. Easier. So trying to find my first pick here. Who's down? Oh, there we go. All right. Teller Banks is my first pick because I'm riding or dying with Teller Banks. This is what I've chosen to do. Listening to Teller Banks is so exciting to me. Because I've talked to Teller about his flow and about his writing process. I think Teller trusts how smart he is, and he lets his flow kind of dictate his writing. And you can hear him playing with phrases and pulling apart things in a way that feels so free. And I just love that and engage with it. Yeah. And you can hear how much he values Wayne. It's awesome. So that's my first pick. My second pick was Rock Marciano. I mean, negative space is probably the best description, right? Like the king of negative space, the king of pausing. Pausing is a stressful thing to do sometimes when you're performing, right? Like being able to sit there, hold it, and be confident that it'll come is not easy. That's why a lot of people are going fast. He is very aware of negative space, very aware of how he wants to use his instrument and his flow, and I adore it. Little Sims third. It's that, there's a mixture of that kind of Afro pop sound with the UK sound, and there's a clarity to the diction. I understand every single thing Sims says, and I've heard Sims do lots of different types of songs with the voice and with the flow. There's a durability to it. I think Sims is going to be around for a while, for a long time. Very successful. Flo Milli is my fourth pick. I think this year, I said Flo Milli took the place of why I used to listen to Megan Thee Stallion. Like there was just an impact, just a punch you in the face impact with Flo Milli that captures me, that I absolutely adore. I love like Godzilla albums, right? Defcee released a Godzilla album this year where you kick down the buildings and you let everybody know you should be afraid of me. You should get prepared because I'm here now. And that's Flo Milli's flow is like that to me. I switched my fifth pick. It was originally E40 to talk about how, he was being ostracized for being a weirdo in a world that hated weirdos, and then now we're in a world that is influenced by his flow. Everybody's written that story. I changed my pick, going Be Real. Be Real from Cypress Hill, who does not get the historical acclaim a lot of times, but pitched up his voice in this interesting way and made it a part of his flow, which was incredible. And specifically like such a wonderfully Latin flow. There were lines like, "Ayo, Ruka, you and me should hop," and you were just like, what? That was not in the pop sphere, right? And so much energy, and the hooks were incredible. The way he used his voice was great, and the flow was impeccable. Be Real still kills features whenever he's brought in. He just murders features. Like he's still rapping at a really high level. One of my favorite flows. What formative flow for me. So that's my five. Kind of wanted to reach out and have everything, right? UK, Latin influence. I wanted a little bit of everything. New school.
So what do you like when you were evaluating the flows? What was your criteria? Like what did you value regarding the flows that you chose?
I basically wanted to, because I love so much of so many of these different folks, I just wanted it to be the people who are magical whenever they deliver from all these different areas, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted there to be not just women, but women from, you know, different places and different flows, different ways of rap. So I wanted to capture a lot of different essences, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I hopefully did that, right? So that I feel good about that team because everybody sounds really different, and really interesting, and is high level. But I'm bummed out that I didn't get Kelly Chris, but that is the way it works. Dash, do you want to talk about your team?
Sure, yeah. So my number one was Quelly Chris, and I picked him simply because I've never heard him sound the same on any verse or any song.
Oh,
I talked to him about it when I interviewed him this past summer. I was like, "How do you do this?" And his answer was basically like, I can't do something that I've done before. I can't do something that I've heard anyone else do before.
right.
I have to do something different, otherwise I trash the whole thing. And to me, his flow, his ability to change his flow is what makes him so unique. He's just such a creative, curious, like boundary pushing artist. And it means to me, he is I think he's got the whole package. He just like he is constantly reinventing himself and staying true to himself at the same time.
Yeah.
Number two is Project Pat. I'm a huge 3 6 Mafia fan. Grew up in the South, grew up on Southern hip hop. Project Pat to me reminds me of when, like in high school, was studying poetry and learning about stressed and unstressed syllables. And when I listen to my favorite Project Pat songs, it sounds like a drummer playing a hi-hat, like eighth note hi-hat, and you can hear when he stresses and unstresses and stresses and unstresses. And he understands how to create this really hypnotic sort of like I mean, I don't always know what he's saying, but I love to listen to him because he takes me away. He's like, I think hypnotic is really the best word for it. He understands repetition. He understands how to create change out of repetition, and he understands meter in a way that like most people don't.
Right.
Same thing with Zero. I think I've not listened to all of Zero's music, and I don't know that anyone ever has. But same thing. He's just like unbelievable. He's like truly Southern. He kind of reminds me of like he reminds me of Twista in the same way of like he's able to do this sort of like extremely rapid fire thing, but you still hear his accent, like his deep Texas drawl still comes through when he's able to like rap at this unbelievable clip. And it's really pleasing to listen to Zero rap. It just sounds good. It sounds like he's having fun, all while being like just this unbelievable technician. And then number four, I have Vortal Mega because I think he's got one of the most important flows that has influenced what's going on now. You can hear echoes of him in Billy Woods, in Akai Solo, in any of the grip rappers, honestly, like even the rapid fire rappers like Lungs or Feek, like it comes from this like very intense percussive, like man on a street corner kind of vibe that Vortal has. Vortal is shouting at the void, he's not staring at it, and everybody else is watching him do it. Like he is I think he's starting to get his flowers in the way of like vast, especially on the Cold Vein, like vast punchlines were what everyone gravitated towards.
Yeah.
And now people are understanding that Vortal was like the cosmic force behind that record at least. And then Busta Rhymes, similarly to Quelle Chris, I just think that he is just like so elastic and so able to change what he's doing at the drop of a hat, at the turn of a dime. Like he can do the rapid fire thing, he can do the triple time thing, he can do this like weird offbeat sort of like a VHS tape that's getting caught in itself, kind of slowing down and speeding up at the same time. And he's so animated. He uses his voice and texture really in a very brilliant way. So all of a lot of my picks are based on rhythm first, but also willingness to like subvert whatever kind of rhythmic ideas are foundational to what they do.
Right. No, I really like your team. And I was thinking a lot about the Project Pat because of the emphasis. There's like words he owns. Like there's words that are like Project Pat words because you never heard them said like they were said before. So that's great. And Vordal, I was thinking about in connection to Yasin Bey in an interesting way, in the sense that flow wise, Alaska explained this on like a call out culture. He said Vordal will say some really deep, important shit, but he'll also spit as if he's freestyling. And some of it is off the top. So some of it's off the top, some of it's not, but all of it is really deep and important. And like it was a bridge between the fanciness sometimes of underground or indie hip hop and that kind of impactful Mike Knight energy. And Most had that too, right? So Most was still giving deep stuff, but there was singing and there was different flows, and it felt very like of the moment. It felt very in the moment.
I kind of think of them like Vordal, especially like when you see a clown doing the trick where they're pulling the ribbon out of their mouth, and it's this like, for me, it's the way I relate that to Vordal is like he's reaching way deep down into himself, pulling these things out, and he's doing it in this forceful way, and you can't keep that same tempo up the whole time. So sometimes things slow down, sometimes they come out rapid fire, but they all just kind of like he's reaching into himself, taking his soul out and just flopping it on the table and being like, there it is.
Right. Ooh. Yeah. Shout out to Mega Graffiti. Ooh. Ooh. Defcee, how do you feel about the team so far? How do you anybody in there that you want to talk about?
Of the people that you two have mentioned, I mean, I think everybody you mentioned warrants conversation. I will say that I think you should have stuck with E40.
Yeah.
With no disrespect to Be Real whatsoever, because Be Real, you're also talking about, like, for a lot of people, the first distinctive rap voice they heard.
Right.
Like, there are so many people who are Cypress Hill fans who, like, or who came to hip hop via Cypress Hill, and his voice is like cubes in terms of like it's very singular. You know exactly when you hear a first syllable of a Be Real verse, you know what it's gonna sound like. But I think 40 is just so unpredictable, man, and all over the map in terms of where he puts his flows. And I just think that I find the things he says more interesting, I think, than Be Real. But again, with no shots to Be Real and no disrespect, I don't say anything as interesting as E40 does, and I think quite highly of myself as a rapper. So, just and then, yeah, I mean, everything Dash said about everybody on his team was perfect.
That's good. Yeah,
especially the Vordal joint. The the Wordle, like the magician's trick where he's just kind of pulling
Yep.
words and language out of his sleeve in real time is
Yep.
really dope too. Yeah, y'all definitely have excellent picks so far.
The other thing I will say about Dash's team, do not break Zero's heart. Okay? If you date Zero, make it stick because it's fucking bad. Okay? Zero's got some tough songs for people that he used to be involved with. But yeah, incredible. He feels like I've always Trey the Truth is one of my favorites people in rap, and it is they've been feuding and they're related and they used to be in a group together. They definitely feel like Mario and Wario sometimes, like with Zero being the dark side of the force. Like Zero lives in a negative mental space that he communicates really accurately. I love Zero. Hectic, chaotic energy. So, Defcee, let's talk about your team and who you have, because you have some interesting people.
Word. And I changed the order in which I drafted them because initially it was the order in which I'd highlighted them on the Google Doc and it was kind of out of whack. So here's the way I would go. Number one, Twista. I think somebody who often gets pigeonholed as being a gimmicky rapper, only rapping a certain type of way. But if you actually listen to him enough, you hear how intricate the wording of what he does is. And I think that for me is the mark of a truly great flow. Is it's also like, where are you placing your syllables, and are the syllables you're using, or the words that you're using, are they intentional, or is it just very well organized hot air, in terms of where it sits in the pocket and on the beat. So, and I think Twista is somebody, even back to '94, if you listen to his first music when he was Tongue Twista, very much had like a very solid in the pocket, mid-tempo cadence to what it was he was doing. And then I think he just kept challenging himself to do more with it. And at a certain point, one of the things I loved, because this is kind of a Chicago thing where it's like, with no disrespect to New York, it always feels good to beat New York. You know what I mean? Like, like anytime the Bulls beat the Knicks, it just felt different than, beating the Pacers. You know what I mean? So yeah, and I think there was that run where he was on, Jay-Z's album, he was on Cameron's album, he was doing songs with Freeway, he was on that We Are the Champions posse cut on the Paid in Full mixtape, and he killed everybody. He killed everybody he was on the song with from over there, and I think that was a point of pride for me as somebody who was from here at a time when there weren't really a lot of Chicago rappers who were making noise like that, apart from, Twista and Common. So,
I was gonna say, Defcee, like, and because in Maine, I didn't have a rooting interest for regions in Maine. I didn't feel connected to New York. They don't care about Maine. Neither does Massachusetts. So I was just kind of observing everyone, and there was a period of time where everyone was paying Twista to come on their songs, and they were auditioning their triple time flow for him, and he would just wax them, like, drag on, pays Twista to do a triple time. So I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you embarrassing us?
And I think the thing that a lot of people fail to understand about double time, triple time, whatever, is like the shit still has to be musical. If I hear somebody like doing a 5-minute drum roll on a snare, right? It's impressive because they're able to maintain that consistency for so long. But at the end of the day, if you're not doing anything with it musically, it's not going to be engaging beyond the initial gimmick. And I think that a lot of people think that they're doing Twista style when in reality, they're just doing a 5-minute drum roll on a snare drum with no other variation. And I think that for me is what puts Twista head and shoulders above everybody. And his ability to like slow his flow down. I don't know if y'all heard the Vakil song he did last year, Best Check 1 2, but his verse on that is very, he slows his flow down because Vakil is not a double time rapper and he still kills it. He still crushes it. So yeah, I think Twista's probably got the best flow of all time. So I would definitely that's why I had him at number 1. And that's basically what I tried to do, is put together like the Warriors lineup that has like, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, Draymond Green, and Andre Iguodala in it.
Yep.
So I wanted 5 people who are able to do everything well when it comes to flows and cadences, who also have styles that are distinct from one another in terms of how they approach rapping. So like Andre 3000 is one of those 5-tool players. You could hear, like just his verses on on the song Aquemini, like the difference between the first verse he kicks versus the second verse. Or, his interlude on Blondes, the Frank Ocean album, where he's like his flow on that, he's flowing like basically if there's a piano solo underneath him and his syllables fall between the piano notes and it's still in the pocket and on beat, and you hear something like that and it makes you want to quit rapping. like what else can I possibly, how can I improve on this in addition to the writing being so good? And I think that that's something that we don't, again, take into account when it comes to people who have flows that are really interesting, because over the course of a project, the interest starts to wane if you're not interested in what's being said. Like even I would say with the drill rappers now, or with certain trap rappers, or I was just watching this video of Lola Brooke performing, who's like, she's a viral drill sensation from New York, and I was watching her perform a song, and people knew her flow is super crazy, but people also were able to know the words, memorize them, because they loved saying them that much. And I think that's something to factor into a flow as well. And so Andre 3000 definitely fits that bill to a T. And then number 3, I had Freddie Gibbs, because I think that was when I heard him rap on the Flamboyant instrumental by Big L. I was like, oh, I've been hustling backwards this whole time, because I'm thinking that there's only one way to rap on a beat like that. And then you hear somebody like Gibbs doing double time on it, or just kind of like, morphing his flow around anything he rhymes on. The shit is super crazy. You can also tell when he's pulling certain influence from certain spaces without sounding like he's biting somebody else's style, which is really dope. And like hearing him talk about the rappers he grew up listening to and how they, like the song BFK, he talked about how his flow on that he borrowed from Trick Daddy verse, and like applied to what he does himself. And the fact that Gibbs can rap that well over pretty much any production and sounds at his best doing it over the kind of music that Madlib produces for him, which is so disjointed and fragmented, and unquantized, but he never misses a beat, literally. It is what makes what he does so impressive to me. And I think one of the reasons why I like the Grandma Stove from Soul Sold Separately, which is like in and of itself as a project, if you want to learn how to rap really well over every kind of instrumental, that album is the one to study. At least that dropped this year. But I think hearing a song like Grandma Stove and his flow on there, you can also kind of tell like this was something that he might have written to just, somebody slamming a fist and a pen on the table, making a beat. Like it's something that I think would be just as powerful a cappella
Right.
And just his musical acapella as well. And you can't really say that about a lot of rappers' flows. So I got Gibbs there at 3. And then 4 is Shauna, just because her verses on RPM are that good. Like if you know, and she was one of the few rappers who was able to stand toe to toe with Twista. She has been everywhere from like Lyricist Lounge as a member of Infamous Syndicate to even just doing the background vocals on Ludacris songs that went, you know, diamond or, you know, triple platinum. And she's always been a great rapper and a master of a bunch of different styles. I really wish she got more recognition for how talented she is. And I think her 2 verses on RPM are 2 of like the best examples of how to rap really well from a technical and musical standpoint without sacrificing writing one iota. It's kind of like, for me, it's like, you know, if I have the chance to draft somebody who I know is going to be able to put up 80 to 100 points, of course I'm going to draft them and stick them in the lineup, you know. And I think that's what like Shauna's ceiling when it comes to her flows and her cadences is unlimited. So I have, yeah, that's why I drafted her at 4. And then at 5, Sketch 185, just because it's like, all right, we have covered every element of flow and cadence except for the styles that came out of New York underground. They're like the Good Life Cafe or you know, or Chicago Galapagos for a moment. And I think Sketch's flow, Sketch could do every single kind of flow. You know, oftentimes he'll change it up within a verse, and similarly to what Elucid does, it's still musical, but in a very unorthodox way. And it's still, and the writing is good enough to where like the flows are interesting. You'll come back to the music and find something new every time. And also just, you know, that's my big brother. I learned a lot from him, and he's one of the best rappers in the history of the city, one of the best rappers walking the planet. And even though he might not have have a command of cadence that sounds similarly to the other 4 people I mentioned, it's still impressive because it checks off every other box that these 4 would not necessarily be able to check off in terms of their approach to the music. And somebody like Elucid, it's kind of, you know, the same way. There's a musicality there. There's an intentional use of negative space, you know. So yeah, those are my 5 and my reasons why I picked them.
Yeah, I was so happy to see Shauna's name on here, and to see you pick Shauna. I think Shauna was absolutely wonderful, and still rapping and still doing great work apparently with songs that I've heard. But I think it's similar to the Flo Milli thing where it's like it's impact, right? Shauna was totally the star of the stage, you know, and with that flow, with that delivery, everyone was tuned in, and yeah, you know, that label, that DTP label, is my pick for the worst label to be on. Because there was so many great people squandered in the background of that stuff. So, yeah, no, glad you did that. Yeah, it was awesome.
Word. Yeah, DTP had her, 2 Chainz, Field Mob. It's kind of crazy. It's like the early 2000s Bulls when we had everybody before they hit their prime.
Yeah.
Like damn, we had Jamal Crawford, Ron Artest, and Elton Brand, and Tyson Chandler. What the fuck? How did we mess that up? And now I'm just salty over sports. So let me mute myself before I get more upset.
Sketch is so cool. Sketch has like Sketch 185 has so many volumes, like so many different volumes that he can hit. It's so cool. I would love to hear a Sketch 185 album with just like a live band, because the voice is just so enormous, it wouldn't get eaten up. I love listening to Sketch 185. So yeah, great picks, and yeah, it's you've got the technical side, you've got a lot of it covered. Um, I dig it. I dig it. Dash, what do you think about the Defcee team?
I think that is some of the most well-reasoned. Uh, it's some of the most well-reasoned picks I've heard. It was really good. It makes a whole lot of sense, and I was mad as hell when I saw that he picked Andre 3000 before I could.
Oh, Andre 3000. The thing I was thinking about with Andre 3000 was how he may have been the first rapper where I noticed how easily he was able to segue to different flows and different pockets, because before that, every flow change felt like a beat switch kind of flavor to it. Like, I'm doing something new right now, right? I've switched. You see this, right? And Andre was always so slick that he could do it 3 different ways in the matter of 3 minutes, and you know, general public wouldn't even notice. You know, he didn't. It was just, he just made it all seem easy. You know.
He always sounds really unbothered by the insane acrobatic things that he's doing. He's just doing it. That's it. That's what he does. It's amazing.
Yeah. So that's a great pick. Yeah, it's I would never pick Andre 3000 because I am hurt that I never got an official solo album after the
All right,
double.
I would like to speak to this. I would like to speak to this. I think a lot of people have over the years tried to discredit his abilities because he
Yeah.
doesn't have an official solo album. And what I choose to say to those people is, you have the Outkast catalog,
Right.
which is full of some of the best rapping anybody has ever done from both him and Big Boy. So you might not get an official solo album because there's also the chance that he just doesn't feel like doing it the way that people will expect him to. And he would rather just show up, make music on his terms, and then dip off somewhere for a while. But I think about like his Life of the Party verse. Who else who came out in '94 is breaking the internet with a feature like that? Right?
Yeah.
So you can't discount him based on the fact that he doesn't have an official project in his catalog when his skills have been readily apparent for 25 years now, 25 years plus.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I'm a lot more mature than I used to be about it. I'll say that. I used to feel very spited by because I loved Outkast so much and loved. I mean, I guess, yeah. And there's people who had incredible, like, I don't know. I was thinking about CeeLo Green, right? CeeLo Green at one point, I think, had a shot at being one of the most important rappers in the world. He's different delivery, different kind of thing, and kind of fell off a King of Funk cliff into a different world. So you're never guaranteed anything, but yeah, he's laid some of the best guest verses you'll ever hear. So can't beat it. Yeah. Kay, what do you think about the team so far? How are you feeling?
I mean, I think it's great. I've learned a lot just by listening to you three. I've learned a couple names I'm gonna go check out. I definitely want to check out Shauna because I do remember her from the early 2000s. I just never like really looked into her discography.
Yeah.
I didn't even know she had one.
All you need to listen to. I'll give you one song just to save you a little bit of time.
Yes.
RPM, Ludacris and Shauna. RPM. I remember hearing that when they played it on the radio, Power 92, and I was floored. I could not. I was my 12, 13-year-old brain could not wrap my head around what I was hearing.
Okay.
So yeah, you'll rock with it. You'll definitely rock with it. That's a classic song.
She was supposed to do an album with Ludacris called Battle of the Sexes that he they had differences. He dumped her and just kind of put it out himself as Battle of the Sexes, which didn't make a lot of sense. So yeah, botched opportunity there.
Yeah.
So Kay, who's your first pick? What do we got?
So when I made my team, I thought of it kind of like an architecture, like in architecture, and the architect comes into the space and it's a blank space, and they have to figure out how to build a physical construction, a physical object that not only fits the needs of what the person who's paying for it wants, but it also at the same time is appealing for people to come into and want to be in, like a space that people would want to be in. So all of the people that I have on my list, I went off with, I thought of it as who has built buildings or who has built songs that I have really come to enjoy, or I've really enjoyed. So my first pick for me was a no-brainer, was Jay-Z.
Hey.
And I just think in terms for Jay-Z, I think he's built a lot of great buildings. I mean, the ones that I go back to constantly are Jigga What, Jigga Who, the La 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 remix off the Bad Boys 2 soundtrack. I believe it's Bad Boys 2. And then the PSA, public service announcement off of Black Album. And I mean, the aha moment for me is I was listening to PSA. So Black Album came out in 2003. I listened to PSA in July of this year, and I was still picking up on things technically that he was doing that I didn't pick up on for 20 years.
Right.
And that's the same with, and that's, with a great building, you can appreciate it, but you really have to take time with it and really appreciate and study the building to kind of understand what the architect was doing, that you've come to enjoy so naturally. And I think Jay-Z does that a lot for me. So he will, in terms of flow, I think he had the full package. He has the full package. Now, whether he's rapping at that level nowadays, that's a different story. But he's built some of my favorite buildings as well, Sam.
I love it.
So my second pick was actually, I'm going to go with Pimp C. And I just think for Pimp C, I think Pimp C, one, I've always heard him in the context of other people. So whether it be like One Day off of the UGK album, or Big Pimpin' with Jay-Z and Bun B, or International Players Anthem, I've always heard him in the context of other people. And every time I've heard him with other people, and I shouldn't just say other people, I mean he's been on the track with some of the greatest rappers of modern time. There's just been a certain it factor about him that stands out. And I think that his flow, he was able to combine a wow factor along with a high technical ability. I think he had a great sense of rhythm, and he just had that certain fuck it energy, to put it bluntly. That was just like exhilarating to hear. So every time you hear him, it just feels like an entirely fresh experience, regardless of the content of what he was rapping about. Just the way he was rapping about it made it exciting. And then my third pick was Lil Wayne. And it's for a lot of the same reasons as Jay-Z in a lot of ways, because I think Lil Wayne and the project that stood out for me is Drought 3 from him. That's still an album I go back to. It came out in 06, I believe, 05, 06. And I still go back to it at least once a month. And I'm still picking up on, like Jay-Z, I'm still picking up on things that I had missed beforehand when I was younger. As I've grown as a listener of music, I've grown in appreciating Lil Wayne as well, and really understanding, like, beyond like the gimmicks and the tricks that he had, there was a high level of technical ability and intelligence behind what he was doing, and still is doing, I should say.
Yep.
Okay, so my last two picks are a little bit like I kind of struggled with these ones, but I kind of went with my heart. My fourth pick is Young Thug, and it's kind of weird because I don't consciously know why, but I think like hearing Young Thug for the first time really kind of stretched my imagination about what a hip hop flow should be. And I think about it, like most of the time I don't know what he's saying, but I think his flow is the closest thing to a musical instrument, to the jazz, to like a jazz. Like I don't, to me, Young Thug is not a rapper. He's more of like a jazz artist in a way, not like it's not like necessarily scat, but it's like a blend of scat and lyricism in a way that like it may seem easy and may seem kind of lazy to like the untrained ear, but there's something unique and high level about what he's doing that can't easily be replicated. So he was my fourth pick, and then the fifth pick, this is the one like I teetered on, but as I said, I went with my heart, and my fifth pick is Doja Cat.
Ooh.
And I think the selling point for me for Doja Cat was she did a remix of an Ariana Grande song called 3435. And that was the first verse from like a modern rapper where I just, maybe not necessarily content wise, but I examined it and I studied it from like a technical standpoint. And I just think that Doja, one, her enunciation it's crystal clear. Every single word she says, I understand. I think she has a great understanding of pockets and space. I think she has a great technical ability as well with her voice. She can change her voice very quickly and is very efficient and very sharp in how quickly she can change her tone. And then also, I think on top of it, I think her understanding of, and this is something that I value in flows, is an understanding of momentum.
Yeah.
I think the great and technically good rappers have a unique understanding of how to create momentum, and it's like a great point guard on an NBA team, like a Chris Paul or something. They can understand what the flow that's necessary in any given moment of the song. So they may start with one flow and then slow it down if they need to accentuate something, and then speed it back up again. And I think understanding of momentum takes a lot of intelligence and skill to be able to do that. And I think Doja, I think she has that. My gut and my heart are telling me that she has that. So she's my fifth person.
I like it. Dash, I think if there's a theme to like Kay's picks, I would say it seems like these are people who sound very free, right? Like there's a and that's kind of the connective tissue between Wayne and Young Thug, right? Is like when you there's a lot of MCs where it sounds like they are constrained by their flow. I am master of this flow, but really the flow's become, your master, you're abiding by it. And Wayne always sounded free as a bird, doing whatever he wanted. And Young Thug built on that. And Pimp C was always that way, right? Pimp C was shocking in that sense. And Doja carries all that energy now. So that to me, that's kind of, does that make sense, Kay?
Yeah. I mean that, and like you said at the beginning of the show, like lists are not about, who we think is quote unquote the best. It's really, lists are reflections of what you value as a person. Yeah. And I think that you like you said, I think what you just said kind of, that's kind of aha moment for me as well. What you put on your list is what you value as a person. And like you said, I value that freedom that all of those rappers have.
Yeah. That's awesome. How you feeling about it, Defcee?
I feel like this man picked last and picked the best fucking team. So now I'm mad.
That's that. K comes, cleans up, quiet, listens. He goes, okay, boom, comes out and sweeps up. Yeah, no, it's a great deal.
We're playing chess and he's playing bingo with a full card, like already chipped on every number. Damn.
Yep.
I love the Young Thug pick. I think that one is especially inspired. I remember in, 2014, 2013, when the tour came out and Lifestyle became like the hit that it was. And the fact that Young Thug could take, I don't know, he's like the rap Elizabeth Fraser from Cocteau Twins or something. He took this like gibberish, I don't know what he said in that chorus, but that was all anyone was singing. My coworkers were singing that. That was the moment. It was unbelievable that you could do that. That he found a special freedom when he did that. And then like his whole career has been building off of that. It's amazing.
Yeah, I agree. And the shit, like, even if you don't understand him, you could tell it's not gibberish. I think that's what makes it all the more impressive is like, he just has a really heavy Atlanta accent. So that's the thing that is, but like he's saying words. He's not just saying whatever the fuck. And then I think that what else was I gonna say? You know who put me on to Young Thug? Was Sketch 185. Sketch put me on to Young Thug, which is, if you know Sketch's music, it does not sound very much like Young Thug, but the song he put me on with was My Diamonds, They Say Pikachu. They say Pikachu. If you walk by me in the club, they just might wink at you, which is amazing. Yeah. Thug, all of these picks are amazing, okay? Like every single one of them, it makes perfect sense. Yeah.
I feel like there was a period of time where they were like, we were trying to figure out who was like the Atlanta person, and it was like there were Young Thug people and there were Future people, and it was like a real thing because both of those guys were clearly doing really inventive, interesting work, right?
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, and they were compared against each other, and like, even no matter what team you were on, you respected the other side of the coin, right? Like, Young Thug has the ability to put out. You remember that acoustic album, the Pretty Girls,
Easy Breezy Thugger Girls or whatever,
and like, and that came out. They were like acoustic. Young Thug put out an acoustic guitar album. And everybody was like, okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
But I don't think it's actually an acoustic guitar album. I think he's just playing an acoustic guitar on the cover. Because there are definitely drums on that album, like a lot of drums.
Yeah.
But that was the response, was what you're saying, Dan, is everybody, I had the same exact reaction. I was like, oh no, somebody put a guitar in this man's hand. We're gonna get another Lil Wayne, I'm Not a Human Being.
Yeah.
And then wound up being super crazy. So salute to Thug, man. And
You listen to like the Bart. I just want to say one more thing about Young Thug because I just love that pick so much. You listen to like the Barter and
oh yeah,
how like that album is so crazy to me because those beats are like vapor. They're like not really even there.
They
And
don't
then
even
he's
exist.
just like and he's just like fine like twisting and turning. It's like he turned these like tiny elements of beats that it just basically like if you would erase them off the paper, blew the eraser dust out, and you could see the outline. He turned those into some sort of labyrinth and like wormed his way through them in this way that like no one else does that shit. It's mind blowing what he does.
Yeah,
definitely.
That was awesome. I was gonna the question I would ask before we move on to things, I would say, is there anybody you feel like isn't quite on this list yet, but could be next year?
I mean, I don't know, to be honest with you. I think that's kind of the cool thing about where we're at with a lot of rap shit now is people are constantly evolving and kind of experimenting, pushing the margins. So yeah, absolutely. I just don't know who. I mean, and a lot of the people I added to the draft pool, so to speak, were people who a lot of people I added to the draft pool were like just the first people I came up with. And every time I added a name to the list, I was like, damn, I forgot. And then I added somebody else and somebody else and somebody else. So yeah, I mean, Stick Figure, should have made the list, but didn't. But Sticks got an incredible flow and cadence. Nicholas F, somebody else. Concept Jackson,
Concept Jackson's on there.
Oh, he is on there?
Yeah,
Concept Jackson is incredible too. Like there are so many names that could be on that list that are not. And we didn't even really get into like the nitty gritty of the 90s. Like, Buckshot should be on there, Tech and Steel from Smith and Wesson, right? Like there are a bunch of people that could be on there that are not. So yeah, I mean, if we were to add a name to the list, each of us for the next year, it still would not be long enough to encompass, everybody who has a singular, amazing flow.
Yep. What were you saying, Dash? Sorry. Yeah.
I think someone who will definitely appear on next year's list is Fly Anakin. I think he's been operating at a super high level. He's starting to chip away at the thing that he's been doing kind of breathlessly, and he's really, I don't know, he's extremely exciting to watch to me.
And an incredibly interesting person. Like he just if anybody out there like who has listened to a lot of Fly Anakin and loves Fly Anakin, listen to that Real Notes episode with Cinema Sai. It's just incredible. It's just incredible. He's a really interesting introverted dude who's also just a monstrous MC. So it's great. Great to check, but yeah. It's
good. And he's starting to, I love how he's starting to use his voice too. Like that Frank album was really dope. Really, really dope. And one of the albums of the year that I think more people should be talking about because I revisit it quite often.
It's a great album. And my pick for someone who might be on my list next year is Love Ulysses. Love Ulysses is so, I mean, ever since the feature on Alaska's Human Zoo, I was like, who is this? It went down this hole, and like Love Ulysses is so like sounds so reckless to me. Like everything seems like it could fall off the cliff, but it doesn't, and I just love that. He's done so much different weird stuff that it's Defcee was talking about E40. me and my friend used to call each other, have you heard this fucking E40 song where he says this shit or does this shit? Like, that's how I feel about some of these really strange Love Ulysses songs. Big Ad Dog, and like just wild. I love the flow. So really interesting cat. Yeah. Love Ulysses. So I would say that would be somebody I have in mind. But
Yeah, he's a beast. And I think in that spirit, right, there are a lot of young rappers who I know of, who I think could be on that list, like 16 Raheem, Wodeen, who are a couple kids from here, Desire, Seven, Audio Visual, younger people who, you may not be familiar with because they're former students of mine. So of course they're on my radar, but they might not be on everybody else's. But people who again have kind of singular flows and are very, very talented, who deserve looks. And yeah,
What
Fly
advice
Anderson,
would you give, an
and
artist
Love You
trying
Listen
to get
Fire.
to that? What advice would you give an artist trying to get to that next level?
Look at your syllables as notes of music. And that would be like the technical advice. And then the non-technical advice would be listen to music that has no rapping in it.
Mm.
Learn how music that doesn't have rapping in it, like learn what it is the instruments can do to a song, and then look at your voice in the same way. Or even, music that has time signatures that you may not be familiar with. Just things like that I think are important things just to kind of study. And also, be open-minded. There may be a rapper who sounds nothing like you that you could learn from. I think I've definitely learned from listening to Young Thug. I sound nothing like him. Same with Future. If I sounded like him, it would be problematic. And also, in addition to being problematic, also just wouldn't sound like me, but I still learn from them and apply it to what I can apply it to as an artist.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I would say.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, there's a lot. It's a flow paradise now, and the other thing is, Kay, to check about flow, right? We are entering a new wave of rappers that, like, when I was growing up, long time ago, singing was not something a rapper should do or was allowed to do, right? If that was like a real foreboding, like rappers hated R&B singers for irrational reason. It was really strange. But we have this is a wave of rappers that are really good at singing. And so the lines are blurred, and like I was thinking about like Smino. Like Smino's so damn fun to listen to, flow wise. And so we're entering an era of that is like that, where the singing and the rapping are bonding in that way.
Yeah, I mean the person that I was thinking of really was Saba.
Yeah,
and it kind of ties
Shout
to
out
what you were
Sab.
saying. Yeah, it's like what you were saying about the tension. There's a tension between rapping and singing now, where I think the rappers like they know, like, okay, like I think Saba knows, like, no, I think Saba knows he can rap, obviously.
Yeah.
So singing is the exciting, thrilling part. That's the challenge for him. Like, okay, like I don't feel as comfortable in singing. Let me, and I think like the high level rappers, or the high level in any industry, wherever they're at, not only are they curious, but they're looking for challenges. And so I think for a lot of rappers, singing has become their new challenge.
Yep.
Definitely. And to speak to Sab, I mean, that kid, he and his brother Joseph are musical geniuses. I've been fortunate enough to know them for a while. And I think that's something that Sab is like a brilliant pianist and producer. And I think he is somebody who we looked at, like if we were Wolverine, we were looking at him like Weapon X. Like, oh shit, like here comes somebody who has the same skill set we do when it comes to the approach to writing lyrics, but who also has mastered this melodic stuff that we can't really grasp ourselves because we're so busy trying to be the best rappers possible that we're getting out rapped by people who have that understanding of melody. So I think you know, Sab and Joe, because you cited them as examples, I think are two people who very much understand like how to use their voices and when, and they're very intentional about it. Even like the emotional buildup is part of the writing process, you know, when you work with those dudes. So yeah, definitely. It's always dope to hear Sab brought up. You can say that about everybody in Pivot Gang. Say that about Saba, Joseph Chilliams. You can say that about Mello. You can say that about Fresh. Like all of these guys have very unique approaches to rapping that makes like the rappers want to step up their songwriting and the songwriters want to step up their rapping every single time. Yeah.
And to speak to your, I mean, Defcee reminded me of something I wanted to say about Pimp C, which was Pimp C might not have the easiest flow on the list, right? Like in terms of, I don't know, just the athleticism of it, but because Pimp C's an incredible producer and like was really behind the UGK sound, a lot of the Texas sound, he had conductor brain, right? So whenever you listen to a UGK song, you're like, oh shit. The most standout line was Pimp C's first line, right? Like, and he knew how to do that. He knew how to hit you hard in the right places because he knew the story of the song. If that makes sense. Yeah, he had the conductor brain. He knew where things should be. A very important person, and I think that's kind of Vast has that function on Cold Vein, right? Like he's the hit you in the face guy, and Vortal is the technical spine. But yeah, it's great list. Really enjoying that. Any final thoughts before recommendation corner? Going into recommendation corner, talk about what we would love to listen
to. I think someone that I didn't put on my list, but I think kind of fits the criteria that we've been talking about in terms of like conductor brain is Makami. I go back to 26 Letter a lot, that first song off Pray for Haiti, because it's that horn sample that is just kind of trilling in the background, and he fits his flow to that sample. He does that constantly where he'll mimic what the instruments are doing and it becomes this really fluid thing, and he understands like when to stop doing that in order to build tension and then when to like jump back into it and it becomes this release. I mean, that's what music is, just a buildup of tension and release.
Yep.
Like he understands that like to a T more than a lot of people do.
Yeah. He's like he's somehow Mac Hami has found a way to sound like a mystery. You know, like he sounds like you just never know what's going to happen, you know, and he's figured out a way to make everything pop in that way. You know, face scarves and, you know, speaking different dialect and all that. Yeah.
I was about to say that I think that's something that like being able to speak a language like Creole, and I think like a lot of people who speak a lot of different languages, their approach to rapping tends to be a bit more musical because, you know, when you, depending on like every language kind of, in my opinion at least, sounds more musical than English does, you know? So like there's a musicality to what it is they do that translates very well over to rapping, which is why you have people like Bad Bunny and J Balvin who are really, really, really good rappers with really interesting flows. And we don't talk about them because they're reggaeton, but I think part of that is, you know, inspired by where they come from. And you could say the same with dance hall artists. You could say the same with grime artists. You know, I think there's something that we can learn from all of that if we listen closely enough.
Yeah.
And I think Mock also is just somebody where I listen to him. I think there are rappers where it's like, man, I wish I could have come up with that before dude did. And then there are people where it's like, how the fuck did he come up with that? And Makami is in the latter category. Like, I'll hear him. He had that one Easter Gun Day song he was on with West Side Gun, where he like has two flows he's running parallel, like on different. So how do you smoke? Peugeot. I read the lyrics, but they've all been taken off the internet due to DMCA copyright complaints by Makami. But like all of that stuff, like the way he lines his flows up, even that song with the guy Fahim, shake pull up, you shake the masjid, like where he's kind of that phrase, he's rhyming with that phrase the entire time. I mean, he's somebody who just has his, he's kind of like a magician, like the magicians with the card tricks where they're like, they line the cards up on their arm and then flip them and they all fold. And you know what I mean? Like that's what Makami does with language. And I think that's part of what makes him so compelling as a rapper too. And it's something he's leaned into in recent years as well. I think he knows like he's hitting an entirely different gear when he raps. And sometimes as part of that gear, you become, like you said earlier, Dan, like you just kind of become freer in terms of the way that you say things and your approach to rhyming. So, yeah. Mock is an excellent pick for sure.
Excellent. Yeah. Moving to recommendation corner. I was gonna start K with someone who's on this list put out an album this last week, and it was like a major influence on me. It's the first time I heard someone with an actual lisp make the lisp fly, make the lisp a part of their flow, and was Cool G Rap, you know. And G Rap came out with a new album called Last of a Dying Breed. That is the most New York thing you could ever imagine, right? He's wearing a Carhartt jacket on the cover. A song with Royal Flush, Vado, it's, you know, AZ's, like it's just, it's extremely New York in a great way. And it's interesting. A lot of great guests, great verses, but I kind of want them all to go away, and I kind of just want to hear more G-Rap. Like, that's just it's not their fault, right? He's G-Rap. He's so good, and I just want more of him. So I was so happy to get that, and I'm still cherishing that. The other pick, okay, one of the great live albums of all time.
Ooh.
I always come back to Mary J. Blige, The Tour.
Ooh, Queen.
1998 Share My World Tour. Woof. I love this. I love that album, dude. It's not just, it's an incredible like run of songs, right? It's you know, you go right, Real Love, You Remind Me, Reminisce, Sweet Thing, like, you know, it's a Murderer's Row. But like the way she's talking to the audience is incredible. And like Mary is someone who is so directly emotionally connected to the audience.
Yeah.
That it is something to behold, man. Like the audience gave her strength and power in a way that's really beautiful, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she just has a gift. She has a gift in that regards of just, like Mary J. Blige fans love Mary, like it's like it's one of their cousins, like a family member. That's how much they love her.
Yep.
Yeah, and she's also just like one of the first transparent R&B divas, like where it's just you really felt like you got a chance to know her because she was so authentic into herself, and you know, I think that's part of what it is too. And I think, you know, when you consider her struggles with like drugs and alcoholism, I think music and her fan base, you know, she was always universally beloved. You never had
Yes.
anybody who was coming out saying anything negatively about what she was doing in the press, or and if they did, she had people who went to bat for her because she just seems like such a genuinely good-hearted person,
Yeah.
and like a really talented musician who always, like, when you think about the fact that she was the one who put Puffy onto the locks, or like when you think about the rappers she worked with who she advocated for, like she didn't have to do a song with Method Man in '94.
No.
She
Right.
didn't have to do that, and that's one of the greatest songs in the history of hip hop. So I
Agreed.
think that's, you know, like I really have a lot of love for Mary, and I think her fans do too, and I think that's why she gets so much strength and power from them, because you know they always appreciated her for who she was and not necessarily like her celebrity. Um, so yeah, Mary fans do love Mary because she loves them back, you know.
Yeah, and to your point, Defcee, like there was a before Mary, being a diva meant you were kind of above everyone. You existed on a plane kind of above. Like Mariah Carey and Whitney felt like they were on a different planet from
Yeah.
everyone.
Well, they sang like they were on a different planet too. They were hitting notes that people thought were physically impossible to hit. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it started as like a, you know, like I'm on a different plane of existence kind of thing, and after Mary, people were like, no, I want to be this kind of diva, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mary modern, I shouldn't say modern, like I'll say 2022 R&B is really a reflection more of Mary than it is Whitney Houston or Mariah Carey.
I'm with you. I agree with that 100%. Yeah, I think Ari Lennox is a
Yeah,
lot more Mary than Mariah. You know,
yeah,
um, that's just how this stuff has gone through, and it probably some of that probably is the connection, right? That people could feel the pain that she was going through. So I'm into it. Dash, what are you listening to? What are you bumping?
I got three, but I'll make it quick. So, one is this album Velvet Hammer by Cypher Soze and Sibs Rock. I don't know much about them other than that they're from Toronto, and the album is like not. It's one of those things that's greater than the sum of its parts, because I don't think anything is like. There's nothing totally mind blowing about it, but it creates this really specific vibe. Reminds me of some of the future wave produced albums. Maybe the Boldy James and future wave one, but some of the ones that he's done with like Danielson.
Right.
It's this really sort of like, it feels cold, like deep winter cold, but also feels like there's a lot of sweeping strings and kind of like psychedelic flourishes. Just a really cool Toronto rap album. Really enjoying that Sleep Sinatra and Don Carrera EP
Woo.
a lot. I think that's really good. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was it's not a rap album. It is by a band called Horse Lords, who started in Baltimore and they now live mostly in Berlin. But a lot of what we talked about tonight is about rhythm. And this band is an instrumental band. It's like a drummer, saxophonist, synth player, and guitarist. And they just like weave these incredibly tight, strange, hypnotic, rhythmic things out of those instruments that like you don't understand how they're what they're doing with rhythm. It is a really fascinating record. Probably something that all of you would enjoy based on what we've talked about this evening. But those are my three for right now.
By the way, Dash, should we talk about the work we have coming, or should we wait on that?
Let's wait on that. Just
Okay.
a little.
Okay. We'll wait on that. But anticipate it. It's very exciting. So more to come on that. Defcee, what are you listening to?
So my first pick, in the spirit of non-rap music, A Crow Looked at Me by Mount Erie. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that album, but that's one of I'm currently in the process of working on a new project that kind of taps into some vulnerable spaces, and I don't think that there's an album that is more transparent or well written than that album. It's a heavy listen though. Like it's definitely one of those albums where if people are not familiar with the backstory of it, Phil Elverum, who's the one-man band essentially behind Mount Erie, lost his wife to cancer, and then the following year recorded an album about his grieving process in the room that she died in. And but like the writing, it's amazing. It's like one of the best albums I've ever heard. And I actually heard about it from Danny Brown, called it the album of the year when it came out. And so that's when I went and checked it out. And it was like, especially dealing kind of with my own, at that point in my life, my own experiences with grief, it was really helpful and therapeutic to listen to. But man, is it fucking sad. But I really love it. I really love that album. So that's one I would recommend. Joshua Virtue, Rama album. Ooh, if you haven't listened to it yet, go check it out. If everything you love about rap music right now is on that album. If you're a fan of underground, independent hip hop, everything that you love about rap music is on that album. And lastly, I think I've lost it. Kill Von Guard, like another guy who has always been very talented and very brilliant, who then came out of left field with this album this year that has really spread by word of mouth. Like there hasn't really been a lot of press or PR for it, but a lot of people have been putting on for it and listening to it. And it's just like a very, like it's an album. If you took the tone of the TV show The Bear and like the uniquely kind of like white Chicagoan experience that's depicted in there and put it on an album, it would be this album. And I mean, Kill Von Guard is very talented as a producer and a rapper, and I think the music he's going to come out with next is going to be even crazier. But those are my 3 albums I'd recommend.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. No, on the low-key, Danny Brown has had some really good musical takes over the years. You know, if Danny Brown says this album is great, listen to it. It's gonna, you know, you're gonna be interested in it. Kay, what have you been rocking with?
I mean, I'm still trying to digest the SZA.
Yeah.
I was kind of hesitant on it on the first listen, but now like I've given it a couple more listens, and now I'm starting to get it. It's starting to connect with me. I guess you could say.
No, it's great, and yeah, there's because of that piece that the expert wrote. I have been listening to a lot of that Pat and Locke album. That is just really fun.
Peyton Locke. Yeah.
Peyton Locke.
Americancer is really, really good. So I've been the RIP to Peyton Locke on that. But yeah, definitely pick it up, and yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, we'll keep everybody up to date on news. But yeah, I'm excited for the list season. You know, every end of the year. It'll be exciting to do. You ready, Kay? You ready to do it? I'm ready. So yeah, thank you, Defcee, for making the time. Everybody check out For All Debts, Public and Private, Boathouse Import Edition. I just thank you for everything you've done, not just in your work, your flow, your writing, but I remember interviewing Solar 5 and being like, what do you think the turning point was for people really engaging with you? And he said, he paused and said, honestly, I think it was Defcee.
Mm.
I think Defcee told everybody I was great enough that they were into it. Like that they started listening.
Yeah.
Done that for, you know, that's not nothing. And we all appreciate that. So.
Yeah.
Hey, that's love, guys. Thank you so much. And you know, I think that has been a goal of mine. Is like, you know, if I've been really grateful for the attention that the music has been getting this year and amplified platform. But if I'm not putting on for anybody else or I'm not using it to help anybody else, then like, you know, the fuck is the point? So I appreciate that. Thank you, Dan. And yeah, you know, look for new music, Solar 5, Slime next year. I've heard a lot of their unreleased work. It's crazy. And yeah, I got to get up with Joshua Virtue to record a couple more joints in the next week or so.
Love Joshua.
When I'm off work for break. And yeah, for all that's public and private, available everywhere music can be streamed. We got something special to kick off the year with next year. We got a single coming in February produced by a name that I think a lot of people are going to be excited to see next to mine. Not Alchemist, as people keep asking me about if that's going to happen. And the answer is no. I don't like, you know, maybe if I'm fortunate enough to make it happen, it'd be dope. But you know, I feel like I spoke that into existence, and then people always mention this man's name and mention me next to him on Twitter, and I know he's getting tired of people talking about this random fucking stranger.
Right.
So, you know, but yeah, no, I think people are going to be excited for it, and I think I owe all three of you some unreleased stuff, so I'll make sure to send that along.
Yeah, make sure to send all the songs you do with Jack Harlow to Dash Lewis.
I can't believe you would ever insult me like that. I can't believe that you think that I would fall that far down the white rapper desperation cliff to agree to doing a song like that.
I want to ask you about that, Defcee, because like there was this pocket of time that I know you loved on Twitter where everyone was giving their favorite white rappers and arguing about their favorite white rappers. And you kept getting pulled into this conversation over and over with people being like,
I look at it.
Defcee.
Here's how I look at it, right? I look at it like this. Women have been unfairly categorized and grouped together as rappers in competition with one another, primarily Black women, for decades, right?
Oh yeah.
And only now are we starting to accept the fact that, oh, you know, we can put women, men, non-binary people, however you identify, all in the same field because rapping and the craft is not dictated by somebody's gender, right?
Right.
On the other hand, I do think white rappers should be forced to compete with one another because, like, we, you know, like, I mean, hip hop might be a space where we feel safe, but we also are benefiting from being in that space and the safety of being in that space. And then once we leave it, from our own white privilege and whiteness. So, you know, if we got to be lumped in a category together and battle each other, if people want to throw us in the Coliseum with, you know, the little helmets with the horns on it, and you know, the shields and the blades and all that, we could definitely do that. I found it hilarious. I find it hilarious every time it's brought up.
I told Mighty Healthy on a live Instagram live. I said, I think it was a calculated move by Twitter to make Elon Musk feel comfortable. Like, don't worry, we're talking about white rappers. We're going to talk about what white rappers we like. You're going to feel great about this. It's all just white males, which that's what we're talking about, really. and he was like, right on, this is good. This is I'm into this. Yeah.
Word. All right, I got a dip. Thank you guys so
Yeah.
much. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Yes. Enjoy.
And
Great.
everybody have a wonderful holiday.
Happy holidays, y'all.
And
Back to you.
yeah,
Yep.
and hopefully I'll speak to you soon. Peace.
Definitely. Give to charity.
What will tomorrow bring? What will tomorrow